Imagine there being a language that someone from Italy, someone from Nigeria, and someone from Vietnam could all understand relatively easily. Sounds like a pipe dream, right? Well, for Jean-Francois Sudre, a music teacher in the 19th century, it was actually much of his life's work. And his work almost proved successful in creating a universal language. Sudra would create one of the earliest recognizable examples of an IAL, an International Auxiliary Language, or auxlangs for short. Auxlangs are particularly used to put in practice the example I had just given you. People with completely different backgrounds and completely different native tongues would be able to communicate through this shared constructed language. It's some sort of Frankenstein lingua franca. Later examples would be the most commonly spoken one today, Esperanto, or Novial, a creation of Otto Jespersen, a Danish linguist in this field. Suja's wife, Josephine, would try her best to preserve the language he had created, but it never got the recognition later languages did. Unlike how many other auxlangs, or even how many other constructed languages in general, are created by linguists and scientists, Sudra was just a music teacher, so he took from what he knew. His language completely revolved around the tones in the scale, or the solfege. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, as T is not actually the note they used in Romance languages back in this time of the 1800s. The language would be known as Solresol as it evolved, but it would only be known as Solresol towards the end of its life. It was first known as La Langue Universelle Musicale. The words in the language would be comprised of a combination of up to 5 of these syllables. But unfortunately, due to his death, Sudra's self-made Solresol dictionary only got to 1 of the 7 sets of the final 5-syllable words. Yet what we do know makes it a surprisingly complex language as one of the first examples of an auxlang. Allow me to break down just how complex this language is. Single-syllable words are dedicated to completely basic words. For example, la is the, or si is yes. Double-syllable words are common addresses, pronouns, or common parts of speech or phrases. Words like re do, mine, la me, tomorrow, or do la, someone. Triple-syllable words are other common words that aren't as basic as the double-syllable ones, such as fa mi si, which is the verb carry or to bring, do re mi, which is day, or you could call any of these sample words a so do fa, an example. However, as we get into 4-syllable words of so or so, the language divides into specific sets or keys, reliant on the word's first syllable. The key of do has all words start with do, the key of re has all words start with re, and so on. The do key is comprised of words relating to man, man's quality, and food. The re key is comprised of words relating to many things you'd find in a house, or domestic things, or even just the family. The mi key is comprised of words relating to man's feelings, actions, and faults. The fa key is comprised of words relating to the country, navies, armies, war, and travel. The so key is comprised of words relating to fine arts, sciences, and practices. The la key is comprised of words relating to industry, commerce, finances, and business. And lastly, the si key is comprised of words relating to government, the city, and administration. Finally, these fail to include words with double syllables. For example, do, si, fa doesn't relate to man's quality or foods as other words starting with do. Rather, words paired with repeating syllables have separate keys. Do, si, fa would mean an altar, and do, so, fa would be a communion wafer or the Eucharist. These double keys, as I call them, are separate categories. Double do is relating to religion, double re relates more to trades and constructions, double mi very much focuses on the grammatical prepositions and adverbs, double fa focuses a bit on medicine and remedies, but there's also some more strange words thrown in there, like the word for lemonade, to the left, and deny. Double so continues on maladies, body parts, and even death. Double law is a continuation of regular laws, industry, commerce, and practice. And double C is concerned with justice, law, and for some reason more science words like astronomy, thermometer, and pyrotechnics. Triple syllable words with doubles in them are more practical words as well, like days, months, numbers, and Simple doubles like do-do or re-re are imperative towards understanding the grammar of Solresol, as they are determinants of verb tense. Grammar in Solresol is quite interesting. Below, I have included a full Sudra dictionary of Solresol, as well as a page that is comprised of Bolesław Skajewski's notes on Solresol's simple grammar. To give you a short and narrow, say, if you wanted to say the word sister, well, technically there is no word for the word sister in Solresol, only brother, resimere. However, borrowing from Sudra's language of French to make a word a feminine one adds a horizontal line, a macron, over the last vowel. So, resimere is resimere. If you look on screen, it's definitely more easy to see the difference. Additionally, if you were to say you have more than one bottle, a dolarela, one would add an acute accent mark over the final consonant, making bottles look like dolarela. An acute accent mark would be to stretch out the consonant, so you'd actually say dolarela to say bottles. Finally, the last grammar rule I should stress is the aforementioned tenses. A tense word precedes the verb it is modifying in Solresol. For instance, let's take the word or phrase I eat. Do re do la mi si. To change I eat to I will eat, we add the future tense word mi before eat. The sentence would now be do re mi do la mi si. There are honestly dozens of other rules to Solresol's grammar, all of which you can find in the links below, and I do not have time to explain. Some amazing things about Solresol, now that we're done with all the basics of it, come with its rudimentary structure. Based on the solfege, Solresol could even be a sign language, following John Kerwin's signing of the scale, and the solfege also corresponds with the colors of the rainbow, making it possible to be understood by people who have trouble reading. Solresol, lastly, even has its own symbology, making words look like aimless scribbles, yet all can be completely defined by a trained eye. Solresol, of course, can even be played on instruments due to it being based on the solfege. In turn, due to there only being 7 syllables, it can even be translated numerically, which makes Solresol one of the most complex and yet easy to use languages I've ever seen. So where do the problems with Solresol lie? Why didn't it get the popularity it might deserve? Well, for starters, its grammar system is lacking. I have found no clear way to audibly accent any syllable in Solresol, let alone how to translate that into using it based on colors or an instrument or numbers. There aren't many clear ways on how to use its grammar, and with no professional speakers of the language, it's likely it never will. Accenting words on parts of speech makes it even more confusing, and that doesn't even begin to comment on the nebulous nature of some of the words Solresol has themselves. For example, apple, pear, and peach are all represented by the same word, do-si, re-si. The keys aren't perfect either, as mentioned previously, where you can find words placed willy-nilly with seemingly no relation to the key they are in. The idea of a proper noun for a country, a name, a town, or place is improbable in its structure as well. Perhaps Solresol aficionados could create something akin to sign names as is in ASL. So your friend Leela with curly red hair could be La Mi Fa Fa La Re Do Fa, which is curls and red and blonde hair. Or Uncle Grant, your uncle with bad breath, could be So Si Si Mi, Do Mi Fa Mi, Re Si Mi So, which is a bad breath uncle. So why is this important? What makes Solresol so particularly interesting in the field of a universal communicator? Well, to understand that, you need to understand its history. Solresol was never truly picked up as a serious auxlang. In Sudra's earlier attempt, dubbed La Téléphonie, the project used 4 notes and was tested by the military as a code. And in late 1829, the military was impressed that the messages were encrypted yet translatable, but would later concede it was hardly useful. Sudra's further attempts were also made specifically for the military, and he spent nearly 20 years working for them, trying desperately to have one of his versions of La Téléphonie used as a code. But he eventually came to the terms that what he was developing was more of a language and that it needed serious refinement. He settled on the solfege as somewhat of an alphabet for his language and would create what we know now as Solresol. This system of communication would have 11,732 words if completed. However, after all of his hard work on developing Solresol, his work was still not accepted, not as a code or a language, and it was criticized for being too complicated and yet too rudimentary, and the 8 dictionaries Sudra would work on would disappear to history as he died. Save for one, which was published by his widowed wife, Josephine. Thus, Solresol survived by the skin of its teeth. Yet, Solresol still did not make it as an Auxlang. By the time Gajewski would flesh out the grammar for Solresol, Esperanto was already making its way around linguistic circles, and it was boasting itself as more like other established languages, especially around Europe. Solresol was hardly appreciated as a first attempt as a universal communicator, and thus, its popularity never saw the light of day. Solresol's history alone makes it quite interesting. Yet, what still makes it interesting is that, especially with the newfound insurgents to revitalize and institute Solresol as an Auxlang by the likes of the Solresol Revival Project and C.org, with a little hard work and fine-tuning, Solresol could actually be used as a communicative language, as it's already based off the, quote, real universal communicator, music. And with only 7 syllables and a potential to have over 11,000 words, there truly could be a universal language at our fingertips, and it's just waiting to be perfected. Auxlangs very rarely evolve, especially for the fact that drastic transitions from, say, old to middle to our current forms of English take centuries. Solresol is one of the earliest recorded examples of a constructed language, and it's still hardly 200 years old. Change would not come naturally to Solresol. It would need personal, attentive care. Additionally, it would need to be naturalized as a language and not just a science, and there would need to be a deliberate push for it to be welcomed as an official language. People would need to be raised learning the language. So not only would it need tuning to desperate grammar attempts, it would need to be legitimized, established, and welcomed. There would have to be a push en masse, not just by country, but maybe even globally, to learn it. Maybe there would even be some incentive to learn Solresol. Many radical efforts would have to be made, but frankly, if universal communication is a goal of ours as a potentially globalized society, I believe they are welcome changes. I think Sudra's efforts should not be put in vain. And I think with something so rudimentary as language, Solresol is the answer to our desires. Universal language could be here. We just need to put the effort in it.